Normally I'm almost the same color, but daegu's giving me a tan. If you think that this is definitely not a tan, you're actually wrong. This is what my tan face looks like. I've actually got like tanning lines on my leg. Here's my leg. Tan. Ooh. Before I break my neck trying to show you my tan line, hello. Today I wanted to make a video discussing the differences that I've noticed between Seoul and Daegu. Pretty sure I wrote these notes about 2 weeks into my stay in Daegu. Let's see if my opinions have changed. For Seoul, I wrote cafes everywhere. I feel like the statement still rings true. However, it depends on the type of cafe. Seoul has a lot of chain brands, so there's a lot of Holly's Cafe, Angel and Us, Idia Coffee, and even Starbucks. There's loads. And depending on which region you're at, you're going to find more of one brand. For example, it's very difficult for some reason to find a Tom & Tom's in Hongdae. Gangnam, they are everywhere. In Daegu, you're still going to find those really big brand names. However, I feel like there are a lot more small coffee stores that are not from a brand. They're more just local people deciding, I want to open up a shop. I feel like in Seoul, if you want to go to a really good cafe, like a really pretty or special cafe, you kind of have to look for it a little bit. Whereas in Daegu, there's like one street where all the really cool cafes are. So you can basically walk down there, or you can just look on maps, walking distance of like 15 minutes, you're probably going to have about 3. In Seoul, they're also a lot more expensive. Maybe not a lot more expensive, but I definitely felt the price a little bit when I went there for a day trip. In terms of convenience, Daegu can sometimes be a little bit annoying because shops tend to close at around 10. If you finish work at 10 and you want to go to a restaurant, chances are it's not going to be open. If you want to go to a specific cafe that you wanted to visit, yeah, chances are it's closed after 10. On one hand, I'm a little bit sad because I'm like, I really wanted to visit this cafe at night because it looked really, really nice, but I have to work until 10. But on the other hand, I'm like, I'm really glad for the workers that they don't have to work until like fucking 12. In Seoul, I found a lot of the times maybe there was no toilet paper. You had to throw toilet paper into the trash bin instead of in the toilet bowl because of the bad flushing system. Whereas in Daegu, I find a lot more times that you can actually just flush the toilet paper. But then sometimes Daegu has those hole toilets, the traditional toilets where it's just a hole in the ground, and I'm like, in terms of busking, if you're trying to look for busking in Daegu, you're gonna be fairly disappointed. In Seoul, there's literally a district, it's called Hongdae. There's a road that's dedicated to busking. People can reserve slots, have a specific space for a specific time. A lot of people will dance, they will sing, some people do magic tricks. In Daegu, sometimes you might find a singer, sometimes. There's one guy who paints himself entirely in silver and then kind of dances, and then for some reason sometimes runs at people in a very like intense stare kind of way. Very unsettling. I hate that dude. For Seoul, I wrote more foreigners, and I definitely have to agree with this one. I don't know why, but I was very surprised to see as many foreigners as I did, because in Daegu I find it surprising if I see one white person in the entire day. There's a lot more K-pop stuff in Seoul. I have to agree with this one 100%. You're not going to find just a K-pop trash store, as I like to call them, here in Daegu. I know one in Tongangro Subway Underground. That's the only K-pop trash store that I found so far. There are a lot more K-pop trash stores, or even just K-pop geared anything, even posters or flyers in Seoul than there are in Daegu, I find. I feel like people in Daegu don't really give a shit. Seoul is the capital, and because a lot of tourists go there because of K-pop, obviously they're going to market shit with K-pop. A lot more K-pop idols on posters, a lot more advertisements with K-pop stars, but in Daegu, nobody really gives a shit. I've seen Mamamoo on a couple of posters, and of course, like if BTS has a collaboration with the Face Shop, obviously their faces are there. Or I see Line every so often with their BT21 collection, but I'm not really like bombarded with K-pop everywhere. The music, yes. The actual faces of people, no. There are so many people in Seoul. Even on like the most crowded days, I can still walk relatively fast through the crowds. You kind of have to zigzag, but you're never just going to be stuck behind people walking slowly. You're always going to be able to like find your way through the crowd, whereas Seoul sometimes feels like you're at a concert and you kind of have to shimmy your way through the crowds. One thing that I've definitely noticed is the elderly people in Korea, doesn't matter whether in Seoul or in Daegu, they either hate you or they love you. In Daegu, I feel like ajasis and ajumas, if you know those terms, that kind of age range, those people are a lot more likely to greet you in English or in Korean when you're walking past than people are in Seoul. People in Seoul usually just kind of ignore you no matter what you're doing. They're just gonna ignore you, whereas people in Daegu, they're like looking at you and they're actually actively watching you do stuff. At times it can be very daunting because I'm like, listen, I don't want this attention on me. It's happened a number of times where people literally are walking and they're just watching you, and they will turn their heads to watch you walk away, and I find that a little bit strange. I don't remember ever having that kind of encounter in Seoul, because at this point in Seoul nobody gives a shit about you. Because there are less foreigners in Daegu, people are more likely to stare at you if if you are a foreigner. And I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm a foreigner, you know, like people are just staring all the time. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say if you're coming to daegu and you're a foreigner, you might get the head turned. Seoul people are very stressed. I would have to agree with this. Even in shops, people tend to be very stressed in Seoul, whereas people in daegu are a lot more relaxed. The waiter was listing different levels of spicy in Korean, and I didn't really understand quite well what he was saying because it was loud and I couldn't really hear. So I had a bit of a quizzical look on my face. I was like, he could obviously tell that I wasn't sure what he was saying. So instead of repeating it in Korean, he just switched to English immediately. Mild, spicy, a little bit spicy, very spicy. And I kind of felt a little bit like hurt because I would have understood him in Korean, but he was just kind of like, oh, bitch doesn't understand, let me just say it in English. He probably didn't mean it that way. He probably, you know, wanted me to understand as fast as possible so he could get back to the 3 other tables that were ringing the bell. I kind of felt a little bit like, you're not even gonna let me try. Okay, I guess. Whereas in daegu, people will speak to you in Korean, which is good for my Korean learning. For daegu, I wrote clean. Still agree. When I was walking around in Seoul, I saw a lot more trash, whereas in daegu, I feel like there will be like trash bags, like really high piles, but the thing is, in the morning they are completely gone, whereas in the morning after, for example on a Saturday in Hongdae, oh, they are still there. Oh, they are definitely still there, along with some piles of vomit. I don't think I've seen, no, I have seen piles of vomit here as well, actually. I still think daegu is cleaner though. Also, you get bumped into a whole lot more in Seoul than in daegu. I feel like in daegu, the only times that I've ever gotten bumped into was when it was very, very crowded. Normally, on like a normal road, I can just walk and there's maybe like 3 other people walking towards me or behind me or something. In Seoul, it's always, I feel like I always have to shimmy. At first, I didn't really mind crowds, but after I've had the contrast of no crowds in Korea and crowds in Korea, I definitely prefer no crowds in Korea. I don't like getting bumped into. I was looking something up on my phone and I was walking. The other person was coming towards me, just straight towards me. Definitely could see that I was on my phone. If my friend hadn't pulled me out of the way, that person would have walked straight into me. That person was not on their phone. That person just wanted to walk where they wanted to walk. It was my job apparently to walk out of the way. I'm on my phone. I'm obviously lost or looking for something. Like, please don't just bump into me and just be like, ah, fucking idiot. No, it's on both of us to not walk into each other, but I'm clearly busy and still trying to walk so the people behind me don't get pissy with me. Any differences that you've noticed or similarities that you've noticed, let me know. Yeah, so this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can stick around till when I make a new one. I hope you drink lots of water, get lots of sleep, and this is the end. Bye!